Okay, so going on with such enthusiasm, like we had amazing speakers over here, amazing insights from them. So moving on, please join me in welcoming Mr. Alhad Mahajani, Vice President Marketing, Juventus Healthcare Limited. It is my pleasure to introduce a business strategist and marketing professional with a wealth of experience and a proven track record of success in the Indian pharmaceutical industry. With a career spanning over 25 years, Sir has been a key player in the growth and development of some of the most well-known names in the industry. With a background in brand visioning, strategizing, and super scaling as a part of senior leadership teams, as well as setting up and scaling up brands from end to end as a leader. Sir has wealth of knowledge and experience to share with us. Not to be forgotten, he is doing PhD on the subject of patient centricity. Let us hear from Mr. Alhad Mahajani as he introduces us to the patient-centered approach in pharma marketing. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you, Shazia. At the outset, I would sincerely like to thank Vivek Hatangadi sir, Swati ma'am, and the entire Pharma State team for giving me this opportunity to be associated with this wonderful initiative of World Pharma Brand Managers Day, and that too speaking on patient centricity. Let me start with a very taking back to 1950s, George Merck in 1950, who was the president of Merck at that time, said, "We try never to forget that medicine is for the people, it is not for the profits. And the profits follow. And if we have remembered that the medicine is for the patient, they have never failed to appear." And by far, if we look at when we look at the last 2 years or last 3 years, the evolution of patient centricity, we need an answer that is it proving to be true. Now, in the era of transactional marketing, growth is a challenge. There is a highly regulated environment. Return on investment is a big question mark. Costs of reaching the doctors and making them prescribe medications is on the rise. Marketing inputs are becoming costlier and costlier. Probably patient centricity could be the silver bullet for pharmaceutical companies. Now there are two aspects which are going to be very important: the will of the pharma marketeers and time to be persuasive enough would be decisive in the long run. Now, taking the topic ahead, we all have been brought up, as when we have evolved as marketeers, we have always treated that patients are as the last cog in the wheel. I would share with you a classical example. We at Juventus, we developed a growth chart in conjunction with the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. And this growth chart was supposed to be for doctors as well as for the patients. And we were directly dealing with the doctors. And when we designed this app, very honestly to confess, we did not consult the patients who are equally going to use this app. We depended solely on the physician aspect of it, right? This was way back in 2017, and the app is still operational. But the point was that even as marketeers, we did not consult any of the patients at that moment of time. So from that period of time, that is as early as 2017, now, when we look at 2022, patient centricity requires a paradigm shift from being treating patient as a last cog in the wheel to being patient centric, right? As Vivek sir mentioned in a brief time before, right? Now, when we look at the subject of patient centricity, the subject is evolving. There have been multiple definitions of patient centricity. What is patient centricity? The definition differs in US, the definition differs in UK, right? A definition differs in Asia. But if we look at one or two best definitions which are available, we can define patient centricity as an attitude and approach that puts patient's interest central to all decision-making activities. This is one of the definitions. The second aspect, the second definition could be putting the patient first in an open and sustained engagement of the patient to respectfully and compassionately achieve the best experience and outcome for the person and their families. Now, this is as per BMG Innovations 2017. Now, there are some aspects of patient centricity which we really need to look at. It says open and sustained engagement. The parameter of open, what it tries to explain is, it means open is being transparent, and sustained means beyond any particular project, right? Beyond any particular project. And the patient to respectfully and compassionately achieve. The respectfully word speaks about, if you look at a mutual understanding and to accept diversity in viewpoints of the patients. And compassionately achieve means empathize with the patient. To generate what? To generate an impact for the patient, right? Now, when we look at patient centricity is an exercise with an end objective. And what is that end objective? And the end objective is creating patient value. And what is that patient value? Patient value is improvement in life of the patient as defined from the patient's perspective. I'm sorry, I'm not able to put in the video because there's something wrong with the probably the screen.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, but I'm audible, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. Right. So this is how the patient centricity is defined. And just to reiterate, the patient centricity as an exercise should lead to creating patient value. And patient value, how do we define patient value? Patient value is improvement in life of the patients as defined from the patient's perspective. Right. Now, one important aspect of patient centricity as a marketeer is patient engagement. And what is patient engagement? Now, patient engagement is defined as that patient does not remain a passive recipient of care interventions, but he becomes an important actor who should orient his course of action so that he could co-create and participate in the management of his and her healthcare. This is what is the meaning of patient engagement. Of course, patient engagement does not support unregulated self-care without agreement of an HCP. Now, what does it mean to a pharma marketer? It means that there is a increase in patient's role in healthcare decision making. Now, this becomes very important because there is a lot of economy opening up in US and UK because of this, patients' increasing role, because the patients are willing to go and pay out of the pocket, right, to achieve their health goals. And this is a separate economy which is building up, and therefore patient engagement becomes a very important factor. Now, we as pharma marketeers, what do we need to learn from this? We need to, look at evolving of strategies to address the needs of the patients as consumers. And this is what is an opportunity for pharma marketeers. Now, when we look at pharma marketers, our role has been primarily to empower the physicians till date. Now the role has to evolve to empower the patients, and this is what is the evolution which is required for pharmaceutical marketeers. And to empower the patients, what do we need to do? The basic need is to understand and empathize with the patient. This is what is the basic need. Now, when it comes to understanding and empathizing with the patient, there are a few parameters which we need to look at, or there could be few determinants. There could be demographic determinants like age, sex, occupation, education, family, status, religion. There could be psychographic determinants, lifestyle, social status, opinions, and attitudes. And when it comes to understanding the patient, clinical determinants also play a very important role, which is symptoms, disease subtypes, even biomarkers today become a very integral part of understanding the patient's need. Now, why are these factors important? Because when we look at patient as being engaged in his or her healthcare decisions, demographic determinants, psychographic determinants, or clinical determinants could impact the patient's gaining of skills to play an active role in the medical journey. And unless and until we as marketeers understand these determinants, it would be very difficult to plan or strategize for the actions to bring patient centricity into action. So understanding of demographic determinants, psychographic determinants, and clinical determinants is one aspect of the story. Now, what is very important, apart from this, is understanding the emotional journey of the patients and understanding psychology. Because for a patient to be engaged in healthcare, his emotions and his psychology becomes very, very important, because he has to be activated emotionally to become a part of his journey. And therefore, understanding of the emotional journey after detection of the disease becomes very, very important. There is a patient health engagement model which helps us understand the patient emotional journey, and it has 4 phases. The phases are blackout, that is when the patient is diagnosed. He is shocked to know that I am suffering from this disease. And the stage which he is in, he totally relies on the caregivers or HCPs for decisions and action about their health care. Now, the second stage is he enters into the arousal phase, in which the patient acquires the first-hand knowledge and he starts to cope up with it. But he is hypervigilant, anxious, overreactive, and he tends to focus on the sick body. Now, this is a very typical stage of the patient emotional journey. The third stage in which he can go is adhesion, where the patient accepts the condition, right? He has understood that he suffers from a disease, but he is unable to navigate from events which are related to healthcare context. And in such a condition, he is confused and he may go back to arousal state. This is this is not a linear kind of a journey. This is a circular kind of a journey. And the final stage is the eudaimonic project, in which the patient is comfortable with his disease. He is accepted that he is with the disease, and he does not treat himself as a sick person, but he treats himself as a whole person. And this is when he can become an advocate for others, other patients. And generally, these patients enter into patient advocacy groups, and they help disseminate more information about health. And he is in complete acceptance of his own disease, and he treats himself as a whole person. So this is one of the emotional journeys. I'll come to the relevance of this patient health engagement model in a bit when we look at marketing. Taking ahead, there is another very important kind of emotional journey which has been put forward by Kubler-Ross, which is called as the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. Now, in this, there are 5 stages through which a patient passes through. The first stage is denial. The second stage is anger, in which he says, "Why me?" Then he starts bargaining as to to find out why did he suffer and what could be the next step. Then the next step is depression. He's overwhelmed with the disease. And finally, he reaches the stage of acceptance. Now, this journey, why is it important from marketing viewpoint? This is because effective patient engagement will occur when pharma marketeers address the patient's unique need, which is specific of each phase. So, as marketeers, if we are able to understand the emotional journey of the patients, this would help us design better strategies to reach them and to convince them so that positive actions are followed. Generally, it is said that patients, when they are in denial or anger phase, they require a lot of information and communication. When they are in the bargaining and depression stage, they require emotional support. And in the later phase of depression and acceptance, they require guidance and direction. So now this is the basis of this cycle, and it has been proven that patient engagement increases when we understand their emotional behavior. Now, when it comes to pharma marketeers and patient centricity, a very important kind of tool or method which exists is creating a patient persona. Now, a patient persona actually is a fictional person that stands as a representation of the group of patients with significant similarities. Now, we were talking about diabetes. Now, patients with diabetes do suffer from heart disease. There are few patients who suffer from associated ulcers. There are few patients who suffer from eye disorders. So now, suppose if we want to serve a particular group of patients, we can create a patient persona based on the following characteristics. The patient persona will consist of goals, their demographics, what are the challenges which they face, what is their relationship with technology, what are their habits, so that we can reach these patients, and what through medium which are most liked by them. Now, taking the topic ahead, there could be another way of looking at creating patient persona or a patient cohort, right? And the patient cohort would be group of persons who have similar treatment pathways or who have a lot of similar disease profile, and therefore patient cohorts can be created based on disease subtypes. There could be severity, comorbidity, behavior of the patients, and treatment pathways. Now, these are different ways of creating patient cohorts or different parameters of creating cohorts. What is very, very relevant is one approach will not fit the bill. We'll have to integrate patient journeys and patient cohorts and personas to be really successful in terms of bringing patient centricity into marketing efforts. Now we have looked at, what is patient persona? How do we create a patient cohorts? But what is very relevant is how do we really understand what the patients want? Now, observational learning is that we can know, suppose if there is a loss of medication, there's a loss of adherence of the patient. We can look at what is that patient trying to do, in the sense he does not take the tablet. This is an observation. But why he does not take the tablet probably is an insight. Now, what is going to happen is that there are going to be databases which are going to be created all across the world, right, which tell us the what. But when it comes to company-specific marketing efforts, what would be required will be why is it that the patient is behaving in this fashion. And once we get the answer of this why, probably we will understand the patient-centric approaches better and plan our actions in accordance. Now, for this, what I would request each one of you is, there is a beautiful video of about 10 minutes on YouTube, how to implement patient centricity in your organization by Lord Dewulf from UCB. You can refer to this. It's a 10-minute beautiful video which tells you how we can really look at patient centricity, incorporating patient centricity in your organizational efforts. Now, what he says is that there are three types of learning. One is observational, second is relational, and third is experiential learning. Now, when it comes to when we interact with HCPs to get the feedback, it is an related learning, because the doctor is seeing that patient, but he does not experience what the patient is actually going through. But when we talk directly to the patients, we actually come to know the experience which the patient is going through. And this knowing of why the patient is going through and how he is going through it is the insight which will help us to learn more about the patients. And therefore, there are multiple techniques which have been developed today to learn more about the patient's experience. This could be social listening. Social listening would refer to looking at the comments directly on the social media from a particular patient cohort or patient group, right? And learning from it. It's very dynamic, real time. So it gives us a feedback about what is happening in a particular patient cohort. Then there could be Zoom in sessions with patient groups. We could have a physical interaction with collaborative groups with patients and caregivers. There could be patient voice during the clinical trials. We can interact with patient advocacy groups, which can tell us about the patient's interests. And an emerging area for patient insights and patient listening could be wearables, because it may not be actually the voice of the patient, but it tells us what the patients are going through and their impact on biomarkers, which will help us design and define patient cohorts and patient personas. So these are some of the techniques which are available, for us to learn about the patient's experience. Now, one of the factors where the patient centricity begins is patient education. Now, research has found out that morbidity and mortality associated with poor medication due to adherence costs is somewhere about $528.4 billion annually. This is a huge impact, in terms of loss to the industry. Now, the industry could create a quick win by creating adherence, by supporting patient engagement, by removing the asymmetry of information. We in pharmaceutical industry and marketing want to push the content to the doctors and to the patients. And we want to make them hear what is good for us, right? We generally do not get a feedback as to what they want to hear and what kind of information they require. So pharma industry, we are culprits in terms of creating an asymmetry of information. And therefore, research has indicated that any communication from a pharma company or a pharmaceutical industry is taken with a pinch of salt. So the need could be probably to build trust and credibility in our communication by being, more, what you can say, true to our information. Now, what is the objective of this? The objective is to create patients' beliefs on necessity of treatment and allay concerns about safety and convenience, because these two are most factors which affect non-adherence. Now, I was just going through non-adherence in terms of Bangladesh in diabetes, non-adherence in Bangladesh and non-adherence in India. And June 20 research indicates that when it comes to diabetes, approximately 51.7% of the patients have low adherence to oral medication. And when it comes to socially economically backward class, there is zero adherence in 20% of the patients. So this indicates total loss of the industry. Now, as brand managers, when we look at a brand growing by 10%, brand growing by 20%, we generally miss out on what is lost due to non-adherence. And if we can incorporate this in terms of either packaging or technology like QR code, which has been covered by Pharma State Academy, we can increase adherence and the brands can themselves grow by 50 to 100% in chronic segments. Now, this is the impact of being patient-centric in the basic stage. Taking the topic ahead, there was a survey done in 479 patients from areas of cancer, autoimmune disease, cardiovascular or metabolic conditions. And patients have come out with a list of what they expect from pharma companies. What does it mean to be patient-centric according to them? And just to read out a few, what they say is, the company would be perceived to be patient-centric when the company helps make sure that the people who need medicines have access to them. The company communicates in a transparent and unbiased information on our disease. The company provides easy to understand and convenient information in plain language. The company helps you gain affordable access to their medicines. The company makes the patient make informed choices about healthcare and treatment options. The company listens and responds to the feedback with respect and humility. The company partners with the patients to innovate and measure impact and outcomes that are important to the patient. So these are a few important take-home messages which the patients have given to pharma companies. And if we really look at, none of them seem to be very, very difficult to be implementable, right? We can at least have a process to start in terms of patient centricity. One more very important aspect for marketeers in terms of patient centricity is retail or pharmacies. It is said that a near sick population visits their pharmacy 30 times a year and 1.5 to 10 times more frequently than the primary care physician. So even pharmacies or retailers could be an important tool and for taking the initiatives, patient-centric initiatives, and improving adherence to medication. Now, if we have to amplify patient centricity, and if we have to look at enablers, then connectivity and technology are the two most enablers for patient centricity to be amplified. Today we have internet, 5G, we have mobile technologies, companies are getting digitalized, right? These could be the enablers for taking patient centricity to the new levels, especially when pharmaceuticals are concerned. There could be various techniques, there could be websites, there could be telemedicine. AI and ML help us in a lot of data analytics, creating data, patient personas, etc. We have apps and platforms which are available where we can involve a lot of patients. When it comes to physical, we have representatives. Then there are approaches like gamification to give patient information. So there are technology and connectivity is going to help us to take patient centricity to a new level, right? And I think so as marketeers, although we may not get into total details of the technology, but at least a brief knowledge of each of the functions would help us to understand how we can really take the patient centricity to the next level. Now there are enablers. Similarly, there are some challenges, which could be obstacles in terms of implementing patient centricity. And these are 4 or 5 important parameters which we need to overcome, obstacles which we need to overcome. There could be technology, but the ease of use today of technology is going to be very, very important. I was just going through, there are about 3.5 lakh apps, out of which only 10,000 apps have about 1.1 billion downloads. So rest of all of them have failed. Probably this is because there was not enough ease of use in the app. Second, from patient perspective, today digital literacy is a challenge. It's increasing, but still, especially in the lower socioeconomic groups, this could be a challenge. Health literacy is another area which is a challenge for all of us. Now, disease condition, acute care, does it require patient centricity, or is it only the chronic disorders which need patient centricity? So this is one debate and topic for debate and discussion as to which disease condition do you require a patient centric approach. And when it comes to pharmaceutical companies, organizational culture to bring in patient centricity could be a huge either a hurdle. Now people, top management who are decision makers today, they have evolved over a period of time, need to understand what patient centricity is all about, because generally the culture flows top to bottom. So organizational culture becomes very, very important. Now, whenever we come across patient centricity, is there a measure for patient centricity? So there's an emerging research area. Now we said the patient who gets engaged, right? Who decides to get engaged. There is a measure which is being developed. It's a 6 or 7 point scale, which can be given to patients, and then they give their answers, and you can actually monitor whether your patient-centric initiative has led to patient activation. This is called as patient activation measure. And then there is self-efficacy to manage chronic disease. This is another scale which is being developed. Although these are in the nascent stages, but still, these are being developed, and in time to come, they will probably give us a return on investment. So the last slide is, we have looked at patient centricity. Although it involves a lot of organizational efforts, patient efforts, and technology, we have to start somewhere, and the journey of 1,000 miles generally begins with 1 step. So let us start to take the first step towards adopting patient centricity. Right. So this was what I would have presented. Open to comments and questions. Right.
Thank you, Thank you so much. Just two comments to make.
Yes, sir.
One, that you mentioned that $528 billion loss, yes, because of non-patient for compliance. Now, what is the magnitude of this 428 million? If you just consider the annual revenue generation of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, which is around $45 billion. $45 billion is the revenue generated by only by the Indian pharma industry, and the 528 is the loss to the industry because of non-patient adherence. So my submission to the marketeers, both in Bangladesh and India, if you just focus on this point, patient adherence in the patient-centric activities, we are doing a great service to the patients and even to the nation. How to the nation? Because consider the loss of man hours because of the disease and because of non-adherence. That is still, if you start counting, I don't know where that point will reach. But non-adherence is definitely going to cost the nation a lot because of non-productive days. And the second point which you brought about, that is also very interesting. You talked about 7 to 8 points for the techniques of listening to the voice of the patient. And one more technique which we at Pharma State Academy have adopted is directly talking to the patient. And in the course of the 2 days, today and on Sunday also, you'll be listening to a lot of voice of the patient, and from which the pharma brand managers, the pharma marketeers, they can draw a lot of insights. In fact, Alhad, I know of many MNCs which have not happened so far in India. Before they start, I'll give you one example. I may take the name Merck. When they introduced Genevia and Genomet, they actually met patients at homes to get an insight into the problems of the diabetes patient. And from there, they drew their insights, and it made Genomet and Genevia such big brands, probably the biggest brands of the 21st century. So listening to the voice of the patient, listening to the patient becomes very, very important part of the brand building activities. This is one point which you have brought out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Also, very well said. Yes, pharma marketing should be prioritizing patients and encourage open term engagement with them. And
Shazia,
with that,
I would like to mention something.
yes.
Ala sir, you actually talked about PHE model, and that was an eye-opener for me. The way a patient feels, starting from being shocked, then realizing that he is a sick body, then realizing I'm a person, or maybe he swings between the two states, and then getting in a role that even if I am a patient, I need to do something which improves my condition and condition of the patients like me. That was a wonderful thing I learned today. And thank you for giving that insights to our learners today.
I have one request, Swati.
Yes, sir.
We have a very important point, a very, very important person in the audience. Professor Waldemar is here as the patient. I would request Shazia to please make him the co-host, please.
Sure, sir.
Because he's another patient. He was one of the authors of H2H marketing, along with Philip Kotler and along with Uwe. So please welcome Professor Waldemar.
All right, let me turn on my camera. Do you see me or you don't see me?
Yeah, we can see you, Professor.
Oh, you can see me. Oh, wonderful. Okay, I was listening to the current speech, and I'm very much impressed by the changes from last year to this year. But nevertheless, there are aspects which I would like to highlight, which I think are also important, because I just looked at the last year presentation which I gave to you, and the message I tried to give you last time was pharma industry is preparing for the digital future, which some companies are still preparing. And we heard some of the changes already today, and there will probably come more. But in the last 6 months, the changes in the digital industry were so dramatic, particularly in the direction of artificial intelligence, that the things what we had planned in digitalization actually has to be rethought. I mean, when you see now the tools which are available for customer interaction, for personal control systems, for interaction between digital tools like the control watches or other monitoring devices, we have now the possibilities that we can bring the whole industry, and of course also the benefit for the individual customer, on a much higher level. So the challenge of digitalization is still on, but in addition, the use of the new tools are absolutely required. So what we are discussing today is absolutely going in the right direction, but with the new possibilities, the human-centered approach gets new tools, gets new ways of interacting. And my request to you is, this is a call for action. You have to include this kind of developments, because if you are not including them, somebody else will do it. And if you don't do it, also the customer, the patient will suffer for it. Because I want, number one, monitor my health, my data, but on the other hand, I want this data be shared and being examined by specialists. I mean, the direct doctor or the health agent who is helping me, or even the pharma industry who can actually use this information to come up with better solutions. So I think where we are now is that our goal of having a patient-centered industry is absolutely a necessity. Number one, from the personal point of view, but also from a business point of view. So I would like to put this into your thoughts, which you have during this conference, and hopefully we can make the world better with this kind of applications.
Thank you so much, Professor Waldemar. Welcoming you here, we're literally surprised. And thanks to you for emphasizing it, that if the industry is listening, if you're not doing it, someone else will do. And obviously it is happening. We are seeing that dynamics happening in healthcare, where these initiatives are being taken. Thank you, Professor Waldemar, for being with us. Please stay with us, because we will be showing patient videos, and then a very young, energetic team of pharma professionals would be doing the inciting work on those videos. Please stay with us.
Yes, thank you.
A few questions, Shazia, we can take for the panel here. Mr. Alhad is there, Chinmay is there. There are questions. I'll just take one or two questions, Shazia. Yeah.
Yeah, before that, Dr. Swati, just a comment from Praveen sir that he have well interacted with your thoughts, Mr. Alhad, and he have said what you're stating with patient centricity. He believes there is a need to understand patient comorbid condition along with their key problem, which would be the long-term management disease therapy method. So that's all. Yes, we can go ahead with the questions.
Yeah, a good question from Mr. Akish Upadhyay. Does wearable means devices for Mr. Alhad? If yes, then how would it help? Please elaborate on the devices part, Mr. Alhad, for him. And also, how can pharma company implement it, as it is a huge cost?
See, wearables are devices, of course. The watches which we wear today, the huge, if I wear an Apple Watch, my heart rate is being monitored. The number of steps which I take is being monitored. My energy consumption is being monitored, right? Now, if I come to know this kind of data as to normally diabetic patients, what is the kind of energy consumption, what is the kilocalories lost, what are the number of steps which they take. So data could be used at two steps. One is the individualized data, which will help us, will help the companies, target the patients. This is one. The second is aggregation at the macro level, would help us policymakers also take a decision and pharma companies also take a decision. So now what needs to be worked upon is that how do we collaborate with these device manufacturers to get the data and use it. So this is something which we really need to work on. But individualization and policy making with individualization, with individual data and combining the data or compiling the data would be of great use from devices, and that is an emerging area, I guess.
Thank you, Mr. Alhad, for answering this one. Chinmada, this is for you from Mr. Tasdid. We have third party to do research and get data on market sales, IMS and prescription. What strategies can we take to do market research on patient problem or patient need? In case you have any case study, I think you already showed during your presentation how it should be done, but if anything you would like to add on strategies which can be done to do market research on patient problem or patient need.
So that depends on your therapy, right? So when you have, anybody can do research, that's not a problem. But see, when the data is available and when there are experts, and so otherwise fine, we can, in fact, even in India, CIPLA, they set up. I'm giving a live example. They did, GSK also did, then subsequently they came to CMARC to do that analysis. Because you cannot expect in today's competitive worlds, everybody has all the knowledge. So fine, if you feel so, any organization feels so, they can do that. Techniques are available, right? But you have to understand what is my business. I am going to dilute my business focus, dilute my focus. Otherwise, anybody can do that. Market is open. There is no hard and fast rule that this is for this segment is, for a particular organization or particular people.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
If I understood the question appropriately, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Chinmada. And Shazia, let us move ahead with the patient video panel discussions for the day, which we all are eagerly awaiting, and welcoming panel, the chairperson also. Thank you, Chinmada. Thank you, Mr. Alhad. Thank you, Walter, for being here. Please stay with us. Yeah.